All right. Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome back to Unqork's Twitch channel. Our first stream of April, and as we expect with April showers, it is raining here in New York. I hope it's sunnier wherever you are as we get into spring. And today we got a cool Twitch for you. We're going to talk about Unqork's marketplace, and you can see behind me here I have my what used to be my favorite type of marketplace, which is a souk over in Morocco. But now my favorite marketplace is Unqork's marketplace. I love it because it's no code and it's built with no code. But who really cares why I think it's cool? I think we're here to really hear why our guests today, Warren and Andy, think it's so cool. So, Warren and Andy, welcome to the Twitch, and why don't you tell everybody a little bit about yourselves?
Sure. Thanks, Nick. Warren Chen, VP of Marketplace. So let me kind of give a little bit of my background. So early in my career, I had a lot of different titles, such as developer, sales engineer, consultant, technical architect, business analyst, digital transformation lead. All these different experiences I had in my career was really fantastic preparation for what I've been doing for these past 10 years, which has really been focused on building and growing B2B SaaS app marketplaces and ecosystems, similar to what we're doing here at Unqork. So prior to Unqork, I was also kind of doing the same thing at Salesforce and Atlassian.
All right, quite a resume there. Cool. Andy, your turn.
Thanks, Nick. I'm the lead solution architect on the marketplace experience team. So day to day is building out the marketplace and scaling its infrastructure. This isn't my first rodeo. I've been at a number of no code, low codes before this. Unqork by far blows all of them away, and I'm excited to show you today how we do that.
Cool. Yeah, Andy's going to have a great demo for us later on. But first, I think it makes sense, obviously, to hear more about what the marketplace is and learn a lot more about it. So let's start there. So Warren, why don't you just kick us off and tell us what is the marketplace?
Yeah. So for those who have been following Unqork for a while, you'll know that we kind of launched the Unqork marketplace last June. So it's been available to all of our developers since for about a year. And we really launched the Unqork marketplace with really one mission in mind, and that's to really showcase the power of the Unqork platform with an inventory of reusable assets. Some, really basic, something like an address parsing snippet, to full on like templated application, something like a life origination workflow. And these are really meant to help our developers build no code applications even more efficiently than what they were used to just building on Unqork custom. And when I talk about efficiency, there's really two aspects that we're focused on. So the first is, really just increase the speed for developers. How can they build even more quickly than they do, just leveraging, the base Unqork platform. So that is with those reusable building blocks for common capabilities, like I mentioned, address parsing, or something like capturing basic questionnaire information, things along those lines that really just help the developers build more quickly, because we know these are common capabilities that they're adding to their applications. The second aspect is, since this is declarative configuration, we want them to follow Unqork best practices. So every single listing that we put on the Unqork marketplace goes through a rigorous set of reviews around architecture, user experience, and security. And the config for all these listings, once it's installed, they can actually see it. So they can actually follow along and review kind of like what we're doing in terms of like how we're configuring some of these capabilities, and use some of those best practices as they do their own custom configuration.
Yeah, what I love about that, right, is I kind of think of this almost similar to you think about code. People always just Google around and try to find a GitHub, application or maybe a Node package or something to add into their application, but it doesn't have the stuff that you just talked about. No one's going in and making sure that any of these GitHub projects are well architected and follow best practices and are secure. So you're just kind of trusting that the thing that I grab to put into my code is going to be great. And so what you're saying to me is if I get it from the marketplace, one, I can trust it, and two, I can learn from it.
Yeah. And we had similar concepts both at Atlassian and Salesforce in terms of like, what we called lab solutions that were kind of open source solutions that people could download, install, kind of review the code themselves and kind of follow best practices. What's really exciting about Unqork is pretty much everything is quote unquote lab capabilities. They can look at that configuration, that the declarative declarations, and follow along and do something similar themselves.
Yeah, that's awesome. Actually, another thing you mentioned was like address parsing. So you gave that. It's a great example, and you said it was simple, right? But it's simple in Unqork. Like I think about, all right, I got to connect to the Google Maps API. I have to figure out how to, read its JSON, make the right request, come back, pull it, push it into field. So like it's simple to begin with an Unqork, and then the marketplace makes it even simpler because you've done those connections, and again, in the best practices kind of way.
Exactly.
Yeah, awesome. Cool. So I've been told, and we've been saying that Unqork's no-code marketplace is the first of its kind. So what does that mean to be the first of its kind with this kind of marketplace?
Yeah, so I think there's a couple of things that makes Unqork marketplace really unique. So the first, we've talked about how Unqork is all about true no code, not having to write a single line of code to do something on the platform. Everything that you can download and use from the Unqork marketplace is truly no code. At previous places, like things that you download in order to extend or customize it, you're still probably writing some Java, in the case like Salesforce, some Apex code, or doing some sort of configuration for the UI, whether it's in HTML or JavaScript if you're trying to do some logic on the front end. Unqork, everything that you're downloading is completely declarative. And in terms of like how you customize, extend it, is completely declarative as well, or using the drag and drop designer. So that's one aspect. The other aspect, and Nick kind of touched on this earlier, is Unqork is the first B2B SaaS app marketplace that is actually built on our platform. We built the marketplace on Unqork. So Andy may touch on this a little bit during his demo, but we've gotten some efficiencies and we've gotten some power out of how we can quickly make additions and updates to the marketplace because it's built on our platform.
Yeah, so like for folks who remember, a couple of weeks ago we finished our series, the UDLC toolkit and all of these capabilities of our Unqork designer platform built with Unqork. And now here's another amazing example of the types of applications where not only you get to see the marketplace that Andy will show you, but then the actual process of like getting it into your environment and all that, all done with no code. So I mean, again, that's why it's taken over the soups as my favorite marketplaces. So I don't think I need to explain to anyone that I care. Like I care a lot about this. It's super exciting. But maybe there's some folks out there who are like, okay, like that's a marketplace, cool, but like, why should developers really care about this and think it's so amazing?
Yeah, so I mentioned that I was a developer early in my career. So in one of my first jobs out of college, I was working as a developer at a web startup, uh, implementing revenue management applications for Fortune 500 med device and pharmaceutical companies. And while I loved being able to build uh, solutions, software to solve these complex business problems, I very distinctly remember how much time I was spending kind of reading existing code, in many cases, kind of debugging that code. And while I'll admit I wasn't the strongest coder, I probably was average at best. Um, I was really strong at kind of breaking down and simplifying complex business problems into kind of really discrete chunks and kind of like figuring out how you can translate that into code. That's what I really enjoyed doing, was solving the business problems with the software. So the fact that I was spending a majority of my time really stepping through existing code, in many cases it was poorly or not documented at all, was or kind of having to make decisions in terms of like how I built a solution because of either architecture or solution limitations from the existing code that was already there. That was really frustrating to me. So that was probably one of the main reasons why I didn't stick with development as my career path. So kind of why am I giving this background? Because Codeless architecture and the Unqork no code platform is really aimed at helping developers and enterprise IT teams, you know solve for this, right? By giving them the tools to kind of build purely declaratively, and not really have to, touch a lot of code for building really complex business applications. So kind of where does the Unqork Marketplace come in? So the Unqork Marketplace comes in because it really helps, expand on the toolkit that they have to kind of build these types of applications, right? We're focused very much on helping the developers, have a larger toolkit with all these pre-built reusable assets, like the asset address parser that we talked about, like, a life origination, templated solution that you can kind of take out of box and almost use it, as is. That's really the power of the Uncork marketplace, and that's why I think, developers should care. Is there's a lot of applications that they're building where, it's solving for a really big business problem or business need, but it's not something that's, technically challenging or technically interesting for them. They just want to find a solution that will solve for that business need, so they can focus their attention in other places.
Right. Cool. Yeah, so you mentioned that you used to play around with a lot of other people's code, whether you got it from some code equivalent of the marketplace, whether it was some other engineer, and it wasn't very well documented, right? I think we've all seen that. I tried to find a statistic online about what percentage of code is actually documented out there, but like, are you almost saying that because of the declarative nature and the no code, like everything is effectively documented by nature?
That's exactly what I'm saying, Nick. Is like because it's declarative, because it's a well-defined, standard language for defining the logic, defining the front end.
Hmm.
You don't really need to have good documentation in the code. The documentation is the declarative like configuration language itself.
Right, right. So then let's say I start a project. I need to grab stuff from the marketplace. I'm grabbing stuff that is both self-documented as well as documented on the marketplace.
Yeah,
I use that. I then turn that over to somebody later on, and everything just passes right through to them. All that documentation, all that understanding.
correct.
Yeah, because like I just, you think about how much time it takes to ramp somebody new into a project, the amount of time they spent learning, what the project does or what the application does. Just as to your point of solving a business problem, like what is the business problem it solves takes enough time to fully wrap your head around. Then you have to figure out how each and every component of it works and what the code means. So it sounds like you're going to get a huge, huge savings there.
Yeah, definitely.
Cool, 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 cool. All right. Well, look, everybody loves a good success story, a feel good, heartwarming success story. So let's keep it light and happy. And why don't you tell us about some of the successes and some success stories that you've seen with the marketplace?
Yeah, so as I mentioned, the marketplace has been available for about a year now, and since our launch, we've been really focused on making marketplace assets that are helping our developer ecosystem, you know, be more efficient building on Unqork. So that's really been our focus, and there's kind of two factors that we're really tracking successes around. One is just the awareness and usage of the marketplace. So we've been seeing continual growth of visits to the marketplace, and downloads and installs of the listings from the marketplace, to the tune, and one stat that I can kind of share that kind of articulates this is, on average, when somebody visits the marketplace, they're spending about 2 minutes there, which means that they're, reviewing the listings, kind of reading through kind of what's available to them, to kind of help them with their builds. There's been even a couple of months where we've launched some new interesting listing where that number jumps up to 3 minutes on average. So we know that there is a lot of value with the assets that we've put into the marketplace. The second area that we really track is not only do we want them to know that these things exist, but we want to make sure they're actually using them when they're building, applications on Quark. So we track several metrics really closely around that. And two things that I kind of say on that front is, about a quarter of all of the Unqork developers are using listings, using the marketplace accelerators in their app builds, to the tune of, for those those Unqork developers that are using marketplace listings, to the tune of like, using it 4 times on average, per month. So those are very exciting stats, and it's been increasing, it's been growing, steadily since the launch.
Yeah. Awesome, awesome. So I know you guys are releasing new snippets and new listings, all this stuff constantly, right? More and more great content in the marketplace.
Yeah.
Why don't you tell us about some exciting or some new listings that excite you that maybe were
Yeah.
recently added?
Yeah. So, we're launching something new pretty much on a monthly basis, if not more frequently. And really what we're focused on is, listening to you, like our developer ecosystem. Like a lot of you are very active on the Encore community. So a few of the listings that we've launched recently are really to help answer some of those questions that have come from you. So one such listing that we launched just about a month ago is the Web Hook API Snippet. Um, you know, Very exciting listing that was answering some of the questions that we're getting on the community. I think probably Nick himself got onto the community and answered some of those questions. So really excited about that one. Something similar to that is we know that there's been a lot of questions around how to kind of leverage and build using the Unqork data workflows. So just last week we introduced a whole series of listings that's calling out some of the academy lessons, some of the lessons that we have within our kind of training and enablement content to kind of help facilitate learning and understanding how to make use of data workflows better. So very exciting things that we've launched most recently. Again, just want to reiterate, we're always launching new things, so definitely check out the marketplace on a regular basis because you'll probably see something new and useful there. And we've gotten quotes from you know, some of our creators, some of our developers in our ecosystem about how much they leverage the marketplace in their builds because they know that it'll help them be more efficient and help them identify new ways of doing and configuring capabilities.
Cool. So you mentioned that a lot of these come from the creators in the community. That's amazing. And I just want you to double click maybe on that for anyone that's part of our community who's listening right now. What do you think the best way for a creator is to engage with the community to kind of get you that feedback so you can
Yeah.
help build that pipeline?
Yeah, I mean, so there's kind of two ways. One is there is just literally posting on the community with any questions that you have. So, whether it's Uncork answering or some other creators within our ecosystem answering, that's one great way to kind of give us feedback on what are the types of challenges or what are the types of questions you have about building on Uncork. Within the community itself, there's also an ideas board. So if you have ideas on new listings or ideas on new capabilities that you'd like to see, whether it's for the marketplace or the platform itself, go add your ideas to that board. We are actively monitoring that, and even if you don't have ideas yourself, go up level other ideas that other developers in our ecosystem are asking us to build.
Awesome. Awesome, awesome. Thank you for that. Community is a great resource for anyone building an Uncork. I'm assuming anyone who's building Uncork has been there, but if you haven't been there, go to the community and start sending Warren all your ideas.
Yeah.
He needs more work
Please.
from what it seems.
We can always use more great ideas for
Yeah.
new listings.
Yeah, awesome. All right, cool. So you told us about some new listings. You told us all about the marketplace. I think it's about time to let Andy shine, and I think you're going to put some of these listings into action. Am I right?
You are correct.
All right, let's see it.
Sounds great. Before we start here, the common misconception with no code, low code is that it can't do as much as traditional coding, and I'm here to say that that's not true. I work on the marketplace on a daily basis, and it's totally built in config, and it's super powerful. It's, I mean, how we run everything. So, in the time we have today, I can't show you how to build a marketplace, but I can definitely show you some functionality that we have listed on the marketplace, how to install it, what the different parts of the accelerator is, and then we can stitch together a couple of other listings from the SendGrid uh, integration template, and then the webhook snippet that Warren mentioned earlier. So where I'm going to start is in my designer environment, and then I'm going to head directly over to the marketplace. This is a pretty much brand new environment. Once you install things, they show up here in your template library, but this is such a new environment that we don't have anything. So we're first going to go and get some things so that we start to use them. Before we actually download anything, just want to run through real quick the types of things we have. We have full-blown applications. We have templates, which is reusable blueprints that you build off of. It's not fully fledged out or flushed out, but it gives you a lot to start with. We have integrations that you can leverage. They're bundled with the service. You just enter your API key and you're off and running. And then snippets are really nice and easy to use, reusable bits of configuration that you just drag onto your screen. So today we'll go through templates, integrations, and snippets, and we'll use them. So let me go back to the beginning, the front page of the marketplace, and we'll start with the first listing we're going to install, which is client information. And this is going to be the base of the application that we're going to build today. So I go to the listing, I select install to my environment, I install the template, and as simple as that, it's there and ready to go. So I'm going to return back to the front of the marketplace. I'm not going to go back to Designer just yet because I need to get a few more things. I'm going
just
to
remember everybody. Sorry to interrupt. Remember everybody. This is built with Unqork. This looks like an e-commerce website. You know, I know you hear a lot about workflows and form collection and things like that, but I mean, this is basically Amazon. All right, a little bit of a of a hyperbole there, but look at this.
Yeah, and just wait, we have a redesign coming. I don't know exactly when it's going to launch, but if you think this looks good, just wait.
Awesome.
So the next thing is SendGrid. We want to integrate that application with some email, so we'll install that one. And again, I'll go back because we want to install one last listing here, and this is the snippet, and it's the Web Hook API that Warren spoke about a little bit earlier. That's super new and recent to Marketplace. So I'll install that one as well. All right, so I can return to Marketplace because I already have this window open. We had nothing in here. Now I'm going to refresh and you'll see everything that I just installed. Before I take the next step and actually create an application from these, I'm going to jump back and create a workspace to contain all of the things that I'm going to be using. So we'll call this one Twitch stream. And then I'm ready to now go and create a few apps from these templates. So we have client information. I can choose my own name. And we'll put it in Twitch stream. And it just created all the modules that I need to actually get this up and running. We're going to install one more. The Web Hook API is actually a snippet. You'll see how those work. They're a little bit different. All right, so we created the SendGrid integration. Now what we're going to do is we're going to set up that SendGrid integration so that we can start using it. So first, I need to go find the service. The integration templates are special because not only do they include the base configuration within the modules that you can leverage, but if I go to services administration here and scroll all the way down to the bottom, did I grab the right one?
It's there. Do you have the zoom thing or something blocking it?
There we go. It was blocking it. All right, here it is. So everything's filled out for me. The only thing I need to put in, it looks like there's something there, but it's not, is my bearer token. So I'm going to create one. This is the SendGrid administration panel. We'll say this is for the Twitch stream. If you grab this in the time it takes me to copy it, then You are super fast. If you can actually get some emails out before I revoke it, props to you.
But that's like a really great point. Like we can't give you the token, right? Because you need to own that token. You need to be able to revoke it when you want. So the integration gives you everything except the one piece of thing, the one thing that needs to be done by you so you can have the securest usage of this template and own it in your environment.
Exactly. And so I'm going to turn on logging here because we're actively configuring, and we should be all set. And to make sure that we actually are all set, I'll jump back to the SendGrid integration template. And not only do we include the API module itself, but we also provide a front end to test the API. And then you can use this to build off of if you need to, right? You can just copy and paste some of these components out of here and build a screen based on what we're using to test the service. So just to make sure before we go any further that this is working, I'll add a receipt, I'll send it to myself. So I'm setting the from email address and the reply to email address. They can be separate. And then I'll say testing SendGrid email service. And I'll send a single email. Says it was successful. I got a couple of other emails which are not relevant, but I just got the email saying testing SendGrid email service. So we know for a fact that this is now working.
Wow. So you plugged in a token, you're done, basically. And you'll show us how to use it, but at its basis, you put in a token and you're sending an email.
Exactly. So now what we'll do is, now that we know this is working, we'll start to look at the client onboarding template or client information template that we downloaded. Now, before we do that, let's just go back to that page. And as you're talking about like documentation, I can look at the modules and it's pretty straightforward, but we also include support documentation about what the template is, how to use it. And this one even includes an architecture diagram of all the things that are contained within it. Now, these darker green ones are front end modules. These lighter green ones are all APIs. And these gray ones are schema modules. You could think of them like a structured table, but it's not really a table in the back end. It's very much more flexible than that, but you don't really need to think about that. This all works without the front end pieces. You could just start hitting this with other applications or other tools like Postman or anything within your stack, and this is going to work right out of the box. We do provide the front end if you so choose to use it. This has it manages accounts, it manages clients, and then also manages the relationship between those. What we're going to focus on today is the client management function of it. And what we'll do is we'll be able to create a client. Then we're going to send an email out of the SendGrid integration that we installed, and then we're actually going to hook it up to a web hook, which will provide data about the deliverability and the status of those emails that we sent out. So from here, let's go back to my designer environment.
Sorry, just before you jump in, as you're kind of wrapping up the SendGrid part, we do have a question coming in. So want to just pose it your way. We're still kind of close to the email subject. So the question was, for a burst of emails coming in all at once, do messages get handled in a first in, first out queue? And how does that look at scale?
So this is a just a synchronous API. I'm hitting it directly to send it out. So I could build a queuing mechanism within Unqork itself if I wanted to, or I believe those APIs do queue and send out automatically. So
I think just to add to that, because like we're using SendGrid right now. That's one of Unqork's preferred email providers. It could be anything, all right?
Right.
You can use any emailing system that you want because of Unqork's integration framework. So I think some of those questions would be answered by, the SendGrid, and I think the fact that their business is focused on that means that they have, great ability to handle scale and to process it. And then I'll say, just to add for the folks out there, like, when Unqork was doing some of the work during the early part of COVID, we were handling meal deliveries and COVID, signups, basically acknowledging that you've been exposed and that you have COVID to the city of New York. So we're talking 10 million people. Not to say 10 million people all got COVID, but it was pretty close. I don't know if anyone out there was in New York at the start of COVID. It was bleak. There was a lot of cases, I think we all know. And we were sending out millions of emails through SendGrid. So props to them also. So Unqork is built to handle that scale, getting it into SendGrid. SendGrid was built to handle the scale. And then some of these email providers also are going to give you other benefits in terms of, like, how they send it out over time to ensure you don't get flagged as a spammy email sender and things like that. So I think some of it is just inherent to the platform, but Unqork, does scale to at least make the calls out and then let the provider take it from there.
Of course, I wasn't even prepared for that question because I don't even think about it.
That's right, works, exactly. Right? That's the better answer. Like, I don't know, and I don't have to care because all of these platforms do it for me. But
yeah, for sure. All right, so here are all the modules. We're going to go into the front end module, and this is the designer canvas. Everything's collapsed right now, but these are all the components that I have on here. If I preview it, it'll look a little bit different, but what we can see is we have information about what this page actually is, and then we have a grid here of client ID, first name, last name, and email. So just to kind of get an idea of what that looks like, I can enter in a bunch of data. Nothing is required. We expect you to go through and make what you think is required, actually required, because not everybody has the same data collection needs. So I can create a client here. Oh, I missed the email. So I can go in and actually edit this and add the email if I can find the field. So I've added the email, and pretty much this is the data collection piece that comes out of the box. But what we want to do is we want to actually send an email, like an onboarding email, to this person once I've added them to the client list. So in order to do that, I need to hook in the API module that we saw in the other application. And what we'll do is, number one, open up. I guess I had it open. Open up the client dashboard. I can edit or take the lock on this.
I mean, look at all of that. Look at all of the interactions and configuration you get with these snippets. I mean, that's a lot of time saved.
So I'm actually not going to do this in the front end. I'm going to put it in the API that's being called when we actually create the client. So let me open up that module. this shows me all the fields that are available about that client, anything that can be passed into this API module. We have the configuration to actually create the client, and then the response, which is what this module replies back with. So after we create the client, I actually want to trigger something to now send that email. If we look up here, we have the email address, because or it should be passed in. Definitely something we would want required if we're looking to send a follow-up email after they're added. So let me take the lock on this one. And then we can add in the API call to send out an email. So in the configuration, I'll just add a new plugin, which is a component that allows me to call APIs. Say plug send email. And we have the service that was created when we installed the template.
You're on the Unqork service.
Yeah, so actually, I want to execute the module, and then the module I'll choose will be send grid, send single email. And then from that, I need to map the data I actually want to send or transfer to SendGrid to put into the email. So for that, first we need who we're sending it to. So I already have that property, which I showed you above. And that is going to map to the to field, which is defined in the SendGrid spec. You can send a first name, last name, but you don't need to. So we're not going to do that. But very simply, you can just send a single email. And based on the documentation, I already know that that's the mapping I need. We're going to put in my reply email. Oop, that was a typo. We're going to use the same email for the send from. For our subject, welcome to Andy's brokerage.
That your side hustle, a brokerage firm, Andy?
Yeah.
When you're not no coding.
Exactly. I'm actually using no code to hyper trade and trade stocks. That's not really true, but you could with Unqork.
Yeah.
Am I not in here? And then we're going to specify the content type, and we'll specify it as text HTML. You can also specify it as text plain. However, with HTML, you get some more information back about whether I open the email or not, which is kind of pretty cool.
So the content type changed the ability for email providers to track that?
Yeah, they put like a little pixel in there, and when you load that pixel, it reaches out to their server and says like, hey, grab me this image. And since they know that you downloaded the image, they know you opened it.
Yeah, wow, I never really considered that wouldn't work for plain text, but you're right. I mean, it has to be HTML to put the
the image in there. Exactly. All right, so let's save this. And then let's give it a test here. I think I still have the page up. Let's see how we do. Oop, that one. And it didn't like something. So let's jump back.
Live debugging.
Live debugging. So one of the UDLC toolkit tools that we saw in one of the previous Twitch episodes will allow me to see exactly what's going on. So let me filter down to that specific module. Oh, you know what? You know what happened? I know exactly what happened. I don't even need to debug. So I forgot to add the post trigger, which is supposed to trigger the plugin to send the email. So we have an option here that will synchronously, fire something else. So if we type in here plug send email and we try this again, we should have better success.
Right on. Andy's an expert, so it came to him naturally, but he was right. Like if he wasn't so smart, he would have went, or even if you are smart, of course, you have to debug every once in a while. You go to service logs, you can replay that log like we saw the other week. You would have seen that it said create submission, and then there wouldn't have been the next step, and you would have known exactly to go in there and say, oh, I never completed my sequence.
Exactly. And so now we get our email, welcome to Andy's brokerage. You've been added to our contact list. But all those cool things I told you about whether or not I opened it or not, we don't have. And it would be nice to be able to, track those types of things. So what we'll do is we'll hook that up as well, and then also add that into our client page so that we can view that data from the front end. So what we've used so far is the integration template for SendGrid and the module application for the client information application. Now what we're going to use is a snippet, and we're going to create a new module from scratch. So I will go back over to my client information, or actually my Twitch stream workspace, and we'll do this in SendGrid. We wouldn't want to put it somewhere where it might not make sense and would confuse people. So I'll create a new module, and we'll call this one SendGrid Web Hook. All right, I'm the editor, so we're good to go. So how snippets work are they appear on this left-hand panel when I tab over to the snippets tray, and I just drag them directly into the canvas, and everything that I need is here. And we even provide some instructions. Best practice is to pull the panels out of the instruction panel, but we can leave those instructions there. It tells me here that I need to use this URL and essentially set that in whoever's sending us a webhook call. A webhook is just an API call back into the system that made the request. Potentially, it could go to another system too, but in this case, we're sending the email. We want status back, so SendGrid's gonna hit this module that we're building here with some information about that email.
Yeah, webhooks are so key to event-driven systems and design, and just going back to Unqork, that integration framework, you can now have any system just pull you. In this case, it'll show us how SendGrid's going to do it. I don't think we've shown the demos here, but I think if you check out the new codeless architecture.org, there'll be a demo there that shows about DocuSign. Now, DocuSign can call back and tell you an envelope. So it just makes for those like really event-driven real-time things possible. And that's super exciting.
Yep. So a couple important things about this that are a little bit different than other modules. I need to enable anonymous access. I'm doing it this way for the demo, so we don't have to set up OAuth 2 credentials for SendGrid to securely communicate back. But that's what you might do in a production scenario. So I'm just giving anonymous write access to this so that they can execute it. And then I'm also checking server-side execute only to make sure that it's only executable from the API call, from like a post, versus like someone trying to access it from the front end of Unqork. So once those two things are set, what we can do is we can take this URL here. If we look at it, it's the subdomain.unqork.io, and it has a placeholder for a module ID. So the module ID I'm going to put in there is the actual ID of this module, and I can get it from my URL here. And then I can go over to SendGrid and then go to mail settings. And what we're looking for here is the event webhook. So I found it. I can go to the event webhook. I have the URL already in my clipboard. So the subdomain is codeless staging x.unqork.io. And then actually, let me grab that module again. We'll put the module ID. And we should be ready to go. So before I enable it, I'm going to test this integration. And it's sending me a sample. Using that same tool, my service logs, I can see if we actually received the response or the request from SendGrid. So if I refresh this, I see I got a remote execute API here. I can view that, and I can see that we actually did successfully receive that information. So the webhook is configured correctly here. So that's good. But now we need to actually take this data that they're sending us and do something and display it so it can be readable. So next thing we need to do is create somewhere to store the data. So we will create a new module. We call these schema modules. Again, I'm going to go and set the same settings I had before. Since that other module is accessing this one also needs to be the same permissions. And we don't want this one being accessed from the front end. And let's just see kind of what information we're getting back in our service log here. So we're getting an array of what looks like objects. So what I'll do is I'm just going to, I could store it and break it down a little bit further, but we're just going to store this all, each request that we get in. We'll store that whole object into one key. And one other thing, in order for the data to be saved, we must toggle that on. All right, now we have somewhere to store the data. We'll go back to our webhook. And what we'll need to do now is check out this data workflow we have here, see what it's doing. So takes the body, outputs it to the response. Which is fine. And then from that, we'll create another plugin. Plug save Web Hook data. And then we'll choose an internal service, which is create a module submission. And the module we want to create it on is our SendGrid webhook schema. The data that we want to pass in is the response data. And we're mapping that to data dot, what did I name the field in here? Request. This should actually be response. Data dot response. Great. And we have to have some way to fire this. So in this data workflow, this is running top to bottom here. After it actually takes that body data and outputs it to the basically a hidden field or variable, we're going to run that plugin. And we can use post triggers, but this component doesn't have post trigger, so we're going to do it the way you do it with a data workflow. That's not what I want. I want to create a value of go. I can set my output. Plug save webhook data, and the action is going to be to trigger that. So I can save that, and it should be saving now to that schema. We'll find out if it is in a little bit here. Now let's go to the front end module and build out the visual page that will display that data we get back. First, what I need to do is I need to know. So we have a button on that page already, which is view. And when you click that button, in the configuration of that grid, we're able to set outputs to other fields. So when we hit that button or another button, we're also going to want to output the selected client email so we can grab the specified records that apply to that email address. Oh, that wasn't. Hold on here. Browser's going a little slow here. Bear with me. Awesome. Okay. Save that. And then we have here select the client ID. We're going to add select the client email. And that's where we'll store that value. We're going to open the view grid up again and add a button to open the modal where we're gonna house the information about all the email correspondence.
So Andy, just a question. So the email correspondence, that's coming back. You wrote it to a schema module, so that's dropped into our API, right?
Yes.
Yeah. So I'm just wondering, you know, I'm loving all this. I'm mindful of the time. We are coming close up on an hour.
Yep.
Maybe because this should just be available immediately via API.
It should be.
Right. So like maybe if we like send a couple more emails and then, you know, pop up in an API.
Yep.
This also sounds like a pretty cool snippet to build email tracking into.
And I'm seeing we're not getting the authoritative handshake here. I just want to check our API key again.
While you're checking that, we had another question come in from our very engaged viewer over here. So thank you first and foremost for being so engaged, following along and asking some great questions. So the question is asking if the underscore ID, you know, was a little bit of a hint that Mongo might be involved here. Yes, Mongo is the backend data store of Unqork. We'll plug something else. Unqork will be at MongoDB World. So if anyone on this is happening to go there, you know, make sure to keep an eye on our session and join our session there. And it is right now the primary store, but, you know, with the exception of maybe, you know, some little underscore hints, try as best as possible to abstract the data store from the user, but still give them, you know, the benefits of, you know, the document-based storage and everything, you know, like, and all the positives that come along with that.
Yep. So for the sake of time, we're just going to get our module submissions here. This is the identifier of the schema module. I pass that in. Browser's running a little wonky. I think it might be from the stream, but we're getting there.
I mean, one way or another, like, you're building an entire client onboarding app with email sending and tracking of email, and we're still under an hour, and that was after Warren delighted us with all the information about the marketplace. So it's still amazing, one way or another.
So from here, we're going to post trigger that, and we should be able to then grab the data. I'll show you in our debug command versus building out the rest of the front end, but get email data. Okay, so that should be hooked up there. Let me refresh our client dashboard. All right, now we have our button there, but which is not going to work at this point. But let me add a new client, and we should see end to end now. All right, so let's make sure I got that email. And see if we got any of the data back. So here's all the email data that's coming back from SendGrid that's now been written to our schema. So the next steps here would be to take the responses that we've been getting back from SendGrid, actually bring this up to a higher level with an unwind operator if you're familiar with the data workflows, and then we'd be able to filter on that email, and then show all of the history of that email. So if you see here, the event is open. You can also see that's another open. Should see delivered here. It looks like just a lot of opens, huh?
Yeah, that's a good thing. Everyone likes a good high open rate on their emails. So I don't think anyone will complain if they see a lot of opens.
Here's another one, processed and delivered. So we didn't get to build out the front end, but we were close.
Yeah, no, look, it's amazing, Andy. And I think you were going to show, I think I saw, were you going to use a dynamic grid on the?
I was going to use a dynamic grid on it.
All right. Well, I'm just going to use that as a tease, though, for in 2 weeks from today, we're going to be talking about Unqork's new grid components. We're going to have a product manager from that team. So even though you didn't get to see the grids today, you're going to be seeing grids very soon up on this Twitch. But yeah, Andy, anything you want to add as you get toward the end of the demo?
No, I mean, what was this? 30 minutes, and we have, something that collects data, sends out an onboarding email, and then actually receives information to say if that person got it or not, which I think is pretty huge for 30 minutes.
Yeah, amazing too. Because also you think that data would have been available in SendGrid, but then everyone has to go into SendGrid. You have to worry about giving people access to SendGrid and all that. You're able to leverage all these integrations to use all of these systems that specialize in what they do, but bring that entire experience together within Unqork. So it's a composable architecture kind of wrapped under an umbrella.
Yep.
Love it. Awesome. Cool. Well then, Warren, I'll kick it back to you. Anything you want to, any last parting words to leave our hopefully very excited marketplace users?
Yeah, no, I mean, just keep checking out the marketplace, leverage the community, reach out to us, through the community if you have any ideas. But yeah, very excited to continue to see how everyone leverages the marketplace and contributes to new things that we can provide our developers to be even more efficient.
All right. Awesome. Well, thank you both for joining. Thank you, Warren, for all the great information. Andy, for building an entire end-to-end app in 30 minutes just using marketplace snippets, and listing. I go as a listing and snippet. My thing is to combine two words together. I had a team called solutions engineering. So it's just my nature. Snippets, listings, marketplace. Go check it. It's marketplace.unqork.io. All right, check it out. Obviously, you can find it when you're right inside of your Unqork environment, but it's up there for everybody to see. Go look at it, see the kind of things that Andy, Warren, and their teams are building, and then think about some of the amazing things that you can build with that, as Andy showed us. So thank you again both for joining. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in, and we'll see you next week.
Thank you, Nick.